Thank you all for the patience, and welcome to the second session of the GET Seminar Series for 2025. Today, I'm delighted to introduce Holly Bieneman. She's the Director of the Office of Planning and Programming at the Illinois Department of Transportation, which is a role that she has held since 2020. With over 20 years of experience at local, regional, and state levels, she oversees long-range and multimodal planning, program development, data analysis, research, and innovative project delivery. Before joining IDOT, Holly Bieneman worked at the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning on Long-Range Plans, the Transportation Improvement Program, and stakeholder coordination. She also previously served as planning liaison with the McHenry County Council of Mayors, and she holds degrees from Northern Illinois University and Northwestern University. So please help me to give a warm welcome to Holly Bieneman today.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, and I'm excited to talk to you all about electrification in Illinois. As mentioned, my name is Holly Bieneman. I am the director of the Office of Planning and Programming. Been in this role for 5 years now, which is hard to believe. I've had a long career that I've enjoyed a lot. I started as an intern at King County, Illinois, many years ago, and when I was mailing agendas. So we've come a far way from that with the use of even electronic email, right? So electrification in Illinois, I'm going to go over a couple things. I do think you heard from my colleague Elizabeth Irvin last year, probably around this time, on the NEVI program and vehicle electrification in Illinois. I'm going to hit on that a little bit, but also touch on some other things. And I'm going to start off with essentially a question, so I'm hoping this can be a little interactive. I am interested in what do you all think is the best thing about electrification when you think about electrifying vehicles, electrifying goods movement? What do you think is the best thing that happens as part of electrification?
But if you find a comment here just to get it started. I think that it gives us the opportunity to rethink the transportation system, and also it's going to bring a lot of projects that will definitely improve infrastructure. And of course, there is a sustainable component that will help us reduce emissions.
Okay, great. So that was a wide-ranging answer, which is kind of what I was getting at here. You know, we see reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Transportation is the largest emitter of that right now. There's also something. So I do have an EV, and I absolutely love the less noise it makes when you're in. You know, for example, there's like at public parks. You don't have to listen to the cars if it's EVs, and so that's really nice. These charts also show that Illinois is fairly up there when it comes to how many registered vehicles we have. This was back from 2022, and we continue to grow. Then getting to our emission reduction, which is, you know, the ultimate goal here, right? These are some of the catastrophes that we're seeing to our physical infrastructure due to climate change. And you can see these are happening more and more frequently. Electric vehicles and electrification in general is one thing we can do to be reducing our emissions. There are many others, but electrification plays a key role in that. I'm always thinking about, we could drive less, and that would reduce our emissions. If we had more walkable communities, that would reduce our emissions. If we, didn't have to travel so far to get our goods. So there's a lot of things that can reduce our emissions. Electrification is one component of it that has some other benefits. So I'm assuming most of you know that in Illinois, we have the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, which is reducing which has a lot of components to it, a lot on the energy manufacturing side. One thing that was relevant to Illinois, to IDOT, was that there's a goal to have 1 million electric vehicles on our roads by 2030. And we have been working towards that in order to accommodate that, and achieve that goal through numerous ways. We have supporting our EV manufacturing. We had the REV Act was a complementary piece of legislation which encourages EV manufacturing within Illinois. We support consumer EV purchases. That was part of CEJA to give a rebate. We have the federal government rebate of the 7,500. There's also an Illinois rebate of 4,000 if you buy an electric vehicle. Electrifying the state fleet. CEJA included that the state fleet has to become electric, and so we have been working on transitioning our internal combustion engines to electric vehicles with the Mustang Mach-E's, and adding charging infrastructure at state facilities in order to allow those to charge. We've been working on electrifying transit and freight. IDOT has a strong role in granting to transit agencies funds and doing consolidated vehicle purchases, where we work to electrify that fleet. Updating the electric grid. This is another role of the state of Illinois. Maybe not physically doing it, but overseeing the implementation of it and encouraging it through our Illinois Commerce Commission. And then the last is one that's very important to us, building out a statewide public charging network, which is there's a number of things happening there. So in order to get to 1 million, and just electric vehicle coordination, I listed out a couple state agencies already. The state of Illinois has numerous, agencies that have different roles, and electrification in general touches many of them. The Illinois Environmental Protection Agency is responsible for rolling out the electric vehicle rebates. They also run a charging program. They run a clean school bus program for electric school buses. So they have a very large role there, and they also are those who manage our air quality and our emissions. IDOT ourselves, I will talk about a little bit more, but we have a role in the National Electric Vehicle Charging Infrastructure Program that we have. Illinois Commerce Commission is working with the power providers, the energy providers, to make sure that the grid is in condition in order to accommodate further electrification. The Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity is responsible for ensuring our manufacturers that our economy is supporting electrification. Central Management Services manages the state fleet and the state facilities to ensure they are accommodating electrification and helping it grow. The Illinois Finance Authority also has a role with a climate bank and assisting. They received a very large grant for community charging from the federal government. And then the Illinois Power Agency, through their work with electrification, and the Illinois Department of Natural Resources putting electric vehicle chargers on in the state parks. So the general gist of what I'm trying to show here is just how much coordination happens in order to accommodate this. We do have a statewide EV coordinator. Her name is Megalak Chura. She's housed in the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, but really gives that overarching guidance to all of these agencies in order to encourage and implement electrification and the results of CEJA and the REV Act. So this map shows our existing EV charging infrastructure. We have done some research, and currently 80% of EV charging is at home currently. There's availability of public charging, but a major reason, I have an EV. I live in Springfield. My family is up north in the Chicago region. I do not drive my EV to Chicago because of the fear of not being able to charge if there isn't something. We need to solve for that. And so that is what we have been doing. There's major consumer anxiety about not having EV charging when it's needed. And we're working on fixing that. There's also disparities in access to home charging. So if you live, I'm sure you all can acknowledge, if you live in an apartment and there's no you have to park on the street, where are you going to charge your EV if you don't have a garage? Or access even to put an outlet in to charge your EV, and figuring that out. So there's certain types of land use that accommodates electric vehicles better than others. So the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, we have done one round. We have completed 2 calls for projects. One was round 1. This map here is showing where the sites from round 1 are. Now, NEVI is for fast charging. These are chargers that will charge your car in 30 minutes, from 0 to 80 in 30 minutes or less. So these are very powerful chargers. They require quite a bit from the grid. And we are putting them every 50 miles along the interstates in Illinois. So this was our first round of call for funds to do this. We are essentially granting federal funds to the charging providers to build, maintain, and operate these charging stations for the next 5 years. We have 21 sites under contract, 8 working on getting them under contract. The 21 sites that are under contract, that is a typo. That should say NEPA, National Electric, or I've got electrification on the mind. National Environmental Protection Act approval. These still have to follow NEPA because they are federal funds. And we're anticipating that a lot of them will start construction this fall. We have completed round 2 for a call to fill in the gaps of the 50 miles on the interstate. Projects have been evaluated, and we are currently awaiting announcements, so stay tuned for that. And that should fill in the gaps. On our interstate, once we've fully built out our interstate system, we're going to transition to what we call round 3, which is going to be looking at where maybe we don't have a lot of interstates, say in the central west part of the state, or the northwest part of the state. We also want to focus a little on tourism here. We have a lot of what we call scenic byways. These are roads that people travel because they are pleasant to drive on. Hoping to, there's a circuit along Lake Michigan. Hoping to put some fast chargers there. So one thing in Illinois that I think a lot of folks kind of miss out on is our goods movement. We are the 3rd largest mover of freight by value and 4th measured by tonnage. So Illinois is the Central America part of the Midwest freight hub of the nation. There's Chicago, which is a massive freight hub, but the St. Louis region also. And then so we have $1.6 billion of 1.6 billion tons, which is $2.5 trillion through Illinois in 1 year. We are a massive mover of freight. On top of that, we are extremely multimodal, a multimodal freight mover. So we it's less than 70% of the freight moves via truck on our roadways. We have all of the class 1 railroads. In Illinois, we are the only state that has all class 1 railroads. We have navigable waterways. We connect the Atlantic Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico through the Great Lakes and then through the Chicago area waterway system and down the Illinois River to the Mississippi River. So that is a massive trade route. We also use air to move. I think Rockford Airport is a major cargo airport. And so more and more we are relying on freight and goods movement to get products to our house, right? To get it to the store for us to use. And that has a big impact on the environment as well. And so what are we doing to electrify freight movement? So I kind of went down a rabbit hole here. Here is the first ever electric tugboat. So this went in at the Port of San Francisco in just last year. And that helps those move the marine transportation goods, our barges. The tugboats, well, moving freight via the marine transportation system is the most efficient and least impactful on the environment form of freight movement compared to if we had to truck that or if we had to put it on rail. And so, with electric tugboats, we could even enhance that. Electric commercial vehicles. That third round of NEVI that we're talking about is going to have a focus on what I mentioned, but also on providing charging for electric commercial vehicles on our roadway. Additionally, the Environmental Protection Agency received a ton, over, I think it was $100 million to work on electric vehicle charging for commercial vehicles. And so they're working on that as well. Electric locomotives. And then EV I think is what but the vertical takeoff and landing, and then package delivery and freight movement through that. So there's a lot of out there working on electrification regarding freight movement. And I think we work in coordination with that in order to enhance electrification. So another award that Illinois received, and this is through the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, is a Clean Ports Program. And so we have 19 public ports in Illinois. We are working to enhance the role of the public ports in order to encourage goods movement via the waterways because it's so efficient and because it will reduce our emissions. And so we did get a grant for that, and we're working on not only electrification of the vessel, but what about once it comes off the vessel, the movement, the crane movement, or the elevator movement. Those are all things that can also be electrified in order to be more efficient and produce less emissions. And so we're working through that as well. Also, as I'm sure you're aware, Illinois has been doubling down on investing in EV manufacturing. The REV Act that passed was solely focused on encouraging manufacturing facilities of electric vehicles. We have Rivian and Normal. They are expanding their facility, and we have been working with them for incentives in order to do that, and they are a major employer in our state. There's Lion Electric in Joliet, and then the Goshen in Manitou. So the department, IDOT, we support these how we can because generally there is transportation facilities that need to be enhanced in order for these manufacturing. But we do that for So for the Goshen and Manitou, for example, we gave Mantino. We gave Mantino $2.5 million to enhance the roadway into that facility in order for them to open. So we do that too in order to assist with the development, the economic development. So being given my role, I have to throw a word of caution out there. Electrification is great and we fully support it and we move forward and support it however we can through working hard on getting EV charging out there, helping manufacturers, and coordinating with other state agencies. The way the department is funded is two ways. One is our motor vehicle registration and the other is motor fuel tax. So every time a car buys a gallon of gas, it pays a fixed amount per gallon of gas. Electric vehicles don't purchase gas, so they are not paying that tax. Efficient vehicles, those with higher fuel efficiency, they pay less in that tax, which means it's a declining revenue source because vehicles are becoming more fuel efficient. This has been a problem, an identified, I shouldn't call it a problem, but an identified issue for many years. The motor fuel tax is waning. And that is how in Illinois, that is our largest revenue source for transportation. The federal government is the only revenue source for transportation. And so those revenue sources have been falling. At the federal level, there has been transfers from the general revenue fund to the highway trust fund. There's been numerous transfers in order to facilitate investment in the transportation system. So we have done a bit of analysis on this and identified if 3 scenarios for electric vehicle adoption in Illinois. All of these do reach that 1 million registered EVs by 2030. There's a low adoption rate, a medium adoption rate, and a high adoption rate. And this shows over 30 years the amount of revenue that will be lost due to the fuel efficiency of vehicles. And so you can see it's for the medium, it's a $36 billion gap, which is quite a bit of revenue. So electrification is great. There is this looming issue. It's not unsolvable by any means. But this is a word of caution regarding electrification. If we do not have the revenue, we can't keep the roads in good condition. So this is also an example just of the fuel efficiency. If you do drive an EV, you pay an extra $100 on your registration fee, but it's a flat no matter how much you drive. And you can see here just some scenarios of how much motor fuel tax and registration fee that cars drive based on their miles per gallon and how many miles they drive. So on average, this is just an average, you know, an average car drives this many miles, an average car gets this many miles per gallon. So the average driver does pay around $300 a year in order to the motor fuel tax and their registration fee. So with that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. I hope you found it informational. There's a lot moving on electrification in Illinois. We are 100% supportive of it and working towards doing what we can in order to increase it to improve our environment. So thank you. I'll stop there and happy to take any questions.
We're going to start with the Q&A session. And to start with, I would like to ask Professor Kuntu to unmute herself and ask her question, as I saw she left one in the box.
Hi, Holly. Thank you very much for your presentation. Really informative and great to see the commitment towards electrification from the state's end. And I wondered, my understanding is that the NEVI funding process, particularly for round one, is continuing as planned, and that there was a discussion for reliability purposes. Reporting data associated with the sessions or the reliability of the chargers for this type of infrastructure that is funded through NEVI. Is that something that you as a state will have access on and something that can be used subsequently as a venue for further research, or is it something that only certain metrics need to be met or will be used only for evaluation from maybe DOE or another
Sure.
venue?
Yeah. Yeah, so part of the requirements for receiving those NEVI funds is that it has to have an uptime, I think it's of about 97%. It has to be up and working, because it's nice to have a charger there, but if it's not working, then that's a problem. Um, and there's also significant data reporting requirements, which is what I believe the professor was getting to. We will have access to that. It will be the responsibility of the grantee in order to provide that. But we will be collecting that and reporting on it. I will have to get back to you on the access of that, like if you all could use it for research or not. I'm happy to get back to who will have access to that. I assume generally, in my experience, we have to report that to the federal government, and then the federal government does share that information. And so I would think that would be out there, but I want to confirm that before I give you a definitive answer. We would support it. We would have no issue with that. So if we are able to, we definitely would be open to it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for this. Yeah, and of course we could have all the complete go through the complete process for getting access to such data through the appropriate agreements and de-identifying the
Mhm.
sessions, all the
Yeah.
information. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. We're gonna start taking questions from the room. I will start with one. You mentioned interestingly that there is going to be a huge difference in the revenue that you expect as EV adoption starts to increase more and more. What strategies have been considered to try to account for that gap in the income?
Mm-hmm. Well, in Illinois, we had Rebuild Illinois passed. It's been 6 years now, but that did double the motor fuel tax, and indexed it to inflation. And so one of the strategies has been to index motor fuel tax to the inflation. There are a number of different strategies. We have not, gone down one path. So these are just my explanation of what is out there that could potentially fill that gap. One is motor vehicle registration. Increasing motor vehicle registration fees is one that has been discussed. A cargo delivery fee is another that has been implemented, I think, in Denver, where there's a fee for everything that is delivered. Another that has been occurring on the western part of the state, western part of the country, is what you call a road user charge, charging by each mile that you drive. Um, that I think Oregon does that on a volunteering basis. So those are some of them. Um, whatever Whenever this discussion is being had, it ties back to, I think, the importance. The motor fuel tax is a user fee. The more you use the road, the more you pay, because you have to buy more gas. And I think that is very top of mind when the revenue discussion is happening. But also top of mind is to not discourage the adoption of electric vehicles. You don't want to penalize electric vehicle drivers. You just want to make sure they're paying, a user-based fee of some sort. So that is a consideration. The motor fuel tax is also highly efficient to collect. And so that is another consideration, whereas some other, revenue sources may require new administrative fees in order to even get them stood up. And so that is another consideration. But there's many discussions out there. Some of them have been piloted. Illinois does charge an extra $100 to EV registrations. And so that is an example of like an increased registration fee.
Thank you so much. If I may ask a follow-up question. And you mentioned all the efforts that the Illinois Department of Transportation is currently doing to incentivize the adoption of EVs. But I would like to ask if there is any current or upcoming policy, statewide or federal-wide, that will allow these local manufacturers to start positioning their vehicles with the fleets of many state agencies, for example.
I think you're asking about the fleets of if there's like encouragement for the fleets. So, we do help like the transit vehicles that transition their fleets. I do think there are some funding programs out there to select a grant to like where a private company or a public, like a town, could apply. I remember many years ago I worked on one up in the Chicago region, where they wanted to convert the municipal operated waste management to compressed natural gas. And we were able to give them a grant to transition to accommodate their vehicles to change their vehicles to and put in a charging, or not a charging, but a fueling at their main facility. And so we do that with transit agencies. We generally historically have not granted to private companies. We consider that more of like a business incentive, which would be managed through the Department of Commerce and Economic Commission. DCEO, Economic Opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other question in the room? Go ahead, please.
You had mentioned and had shown a list of different government agencies that come together over electrification. Can you talk more about the framework of that? And do they have public meetings where the public can listen in on like future decisions as well as public input? And also, how do you do internal analyses for future like infrastructure goals?
That's a great question. We do meet every other week. It is generally staff level folks who are coordinating on what each agency is working on. And so it's an opportunity for us to report on the work we're doing. It also helps make connections between the different agencies. So, for example, the Illinois Finance Authority got a grant from USDOT to do community charging at public facilities like libraries, community colleges, things such as that. And they don't have much experience working with the federal government, but we do. And so this coordination allowed an opportunity for us to collaborate in order to provide technical assistance to them to access those funds and implement those. In general, the statewide EV coordinator, is on those meetings and running them and working towards giving direction to each agency to make sure we do have that coordinated effort. They do not meet publicly. It is a staff level. It is a staff level kind of committee and coordination going on. I would say the opportunity for public involvement would be more in those specific program areas for NEVI or for the community charging programs. one I haven't mentioned is the carbon pollution reduction grant. That was part of I think the IRA legislation, federal legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act, I don't know, 2 years ago. And the Illinois received the largest award for that. And so we're working on developing a plan that is managed also through the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. That is managed through them, and they're developing a plan for implementation. And so I would expect more like program focus areas like that to have an opportunity for public comment, public input.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. Sorry, I was a little bit late, but I would like to maybe get your perspective on go a little bit broader. You mentioned about the natural gas, the compressed natural gas, but then how is the state's perspective, IDOT perspective on hydrogen? Potentially, some of the transit agencies are considering replacing their fleet for hydrogen, and then we are working with them to see the feasibility. Just want to get your maybe pick on you a little bit your brain on this regarding what you see as a future of that. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I figured that question would come up, because hydrogen is another alternative fuel, that would reduce emissions. We, we have been more focused on electrification because, we receive funds to implement that, but there is a hydrogen workforce or a hydrogen task force, that we do actively participate on. That was created through state legislation. I'm not sure which form of legislation. So we are open to it. We are having those discussions and we're participating in them. Right now are because we have implementable actions and funding behind them for electrification. That is what we have been focusing on. But definitely hydrogen is out there and being discussed, and we're participating in that.
Good. Thank you.
Did you have a question? Okay, if I may ask one last question. What are the policies that you're trying to establish to attract more manufacturers to base their headquarters in Illinois?
That's a great question. And based on some of these questions I'm getting, I think you should try and probably hear from Mega Lectura, and try and get her to come talk to you. And then another person I'd recommend is our Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, Lisa. I'm blanking on her last name right now, but she has been integral in working with these companies and working with the available sites we have in Illinois, and working through those to get more manufacturing in Illinois. We at IDOT, we coordinate a lot with other states, and so we know there's a lot of interest throughout the state to get this manufacturing into Illinois. I think our Rev Act really has helped us with that, and having someone as dedicated yes, thank you, Megan, Lisa Clemens Stott, having someone dedicated to that and running those to ground are super important. So her and I have presented side by side on a couple things, and it'd be great for you to hear from her. But that Rev Act and then the staff assigned to implementing it has been super helpful, and a governor who's supportive, of course.
If there is no question left in the room, all that is left to say on behalf of the Illinois Center for Transportation is thank you so much for being with us today, and we definitely hope to welcome you here in person in a future opportunity. You're more than welcome to come visit the facilities here. And I think the research approach of IDOT regarding new technologies is being quite attractive right now, and will definitely lead to great results in the future. So help me say thank you to Holly Bieneman today, all the people present here.
Thank you.
Come on.